Yeah, I didn't think I'd bring up religion again after talking about it once. I told myself that I would never talk about it again once I'd opened up about the trauma. But thinking about it now, there's some things I haven't thought about until now, and I'll go more into today's video. But before we get into it, hit the like button and subscribe if you are new. So yeah, this is, if you haven't seen part 1 of, I recommend you go back and watch that first before watching this video. And as always, if you're against the LGBTQ community, then click off it right now and go watch the video. But today, we have NotRiptosFather joining me once again.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming back on the channel, Noel. How are you today?
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. And I'm pretty good today. It's been a crazy week, but good. Happy to be here.
Okay, that's good. So I'm gonna kick off with a recent story time from 2 months ago. It was an open day in church, as usual. Everyone's doing the worship songs at the beginning as normal, and giving a sermons as just like every other Sunday. And I thought to myself that it was gonna be like a normal sermon, but alas, I was wrong.
Oh, love that.
Because the sermon that day was based on like sexual activities, stuff like that, and why it's wrong. And what really made my blood boil was that homosexuality was included, and and of course my body was shaking because I was shocked and very angry because that was completely out of nowhere for me, and so I stepped out of the sanctuary again, but this time I did not go back in for the rest of the sermon, and only came back in when it was time for prayer. And the rest of it I'll go in momentarily, but yeah.
Man, it's I know that feeling. I hate that is something I had to experience recently since we talked last. It's one of those things that shows that minds aren't changing in that setting, it sounds, so it's frustrating because it's something you probably think like, okay, like they're over it for now, maybe, they'll drop it or they won't bring it back up, and then here they are facing a whole sermon on an entire group of people. It's funny, like, for me, I've had those moments too, but it's really interesting how my religious trauma works, because I think I told you before, like, I grew up in a more country, backwoods, old-fashioned church, and I have a lot of religious trauma from that in the sense of, like, perfectionism, because it was a very, like, hellfire, brimstone, screaming at the pulpit type of preaching that scared me as a kid. You know, I was really afraid of just hell and being impure and all that stuff, but they never, at that church, I gotta give them credit, they never specifically called out homosexuality that I remember. I don't remember, and I usually did remember these things because it would make me nervous when I'd hear it, because I knew it was something that I was struggling with as a Christian. But it was the church that was more progressive that I went to as a late teen that would preach about homosexuality and gay marriage all the time. So it's really interesting. You would think, in my mind, I would think it would be the backwoodsy country, old-fashioned church with older people that would be more focused on that kind of rhetoric. But I've even heard, you know, I don't go there anymore, but I've even heard that they're actually decently accepting of gay people. I think they have a gay couple in their church now, and one of the partners recently got saved, and, like, they don't treat them any differently than they would, like, a straight couple. But the progressive church would always bring it up, and it was like, it was frustrating because I went there thinking, like, oh, this is more modern, you know, the praise and worship music, I liked it better than the hymnal music, and, you know, it just felt more, oh, this is, like, catered toward younger people, they're probably more understanding. But no, it was, like, way more problematic, honestly, than the church, you know, experience I'd had before. So yeah, that feeling of, like, when they, you know, you think you're there for, like, this connection with God and this community, and then they start getting political, and it's like, you know, and that shouldn't even, in my opinion, that shouldn't even be a political issue. I think, like, just, I don't understand why someone's identity, like, who they love, has to be so politicized. I don't understand why religion and politics have to, like, merge so much, whenever, to me, religion and spirituality should be a personal thing. Like, if you, as an individual, you know, aren't gay or think it's wrong to be gay, then, like, that's between you and God, but you don't have to go out and try to force that on other people. Like, you should just leave it to God and them to decide, you know? And I wish more churches would be like that, you know? Because, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the Bible that people overlook and don't follow all the time, but it doesn't get focused on in church, you know, and it gets overlooked. So, you know, I think at the end of the day, that's important, but it is frustrating when you've come to that realization, like you have, that, like, you know, this isn't what God should be, and then you go trying to connect with God, and then they ruin it with trying to focus on something like that. It's frustrating. It's I know what you mean when you say your blood was boiling. Like, I've definitely felt that too. Definitely have felt that too in those situations. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, before I go further into the story time, that was a question I've been wanting to ask you since the last time you were here.
Yeah.
I mean, I already know the answer, so otherwise you want to be talking to me right now. But anyway, since you're one of those people with religious trauma, would you say that all churches or religion are bad?
That is a great question. Yeah. So no. Short answer, no. But I will elaborate on that, of course. It's, you know, I noticed, as I started dealing with my religious trauma and trying to come to terms with what I wanted to believe, I noticed that there's definitely a spectrum of beliefs on gay people, for example. We're just going to use that, okay? Within churches. There's everything from hate it, condemn it, don't even welcome people in, to won't accept it but won't treat people differently, to gay people are totally fine, they just can't serve in the church, to people have gay pastors, okay? So there's like this huge spectrum of denominations, beliefs, individual, identities in churches. And I think as a gay person, if I were to go to a church, I would want to go to one that doesn't treat me as like impure in any way. So I would be over here with like the one with the gay pastor I would feel safest in, right? But as far as like, there are different people though that have different individual feelings about that. But I do think, I guess my point is, there is a church out there for people who feel like they miss Christianity, and like some churches, like the one over here that like won't welcome them, or the one that like condemns them, those won't like accept them, maybe, which has made them feel like that's the case for everywhere. But I do thoroughly believe and have seen that there are churches that have moved past that type of mindset and are very much like, you are a person just as much as anyone else, and everything else is between you and God. Like, that's not our place to judge. And they more so talk about like how you can help your community and do all the things that like Jesus talked about, which was like helping, impoverished people, helping being kind to others, like stuff like that. I definitely see that exists, and it even exists in Appalachia, which is crazy because, my big thing I always talk about is like the small-minded churches and stuff. It is hard around here, but I have seen churches like that, which is cool and encouraging. So yes, I would definitely say the biggest thing is like not letting it turn you against Christian people or even Christianity if it's something you're still interested in. For me, I think I've said before that I carry a lot of the spiritual aspects of Christianity with me still, but I also I kind of consider myself an omniist. I think that there can be truth to a lot of different religions, but for me, I like to focus more on the spiritual aspect and not label things, because that has helped me heal. On the same note, though, my inner child needs those labels, so sometimes I will, like, watch a sermon from the church that's near me that is gay accepting, just because the younger parts of me still feel like that's necessary, and it helps them heal and feel less scared, So yes, very long way of answering your question. I do not believe all churches are bad, and I do think it's important that we find those people that are Christians who go about it the less politicized way, that are more like actually following in the footsteps of Jesus, of welcoming all people, not non-judgment, basically, So I think the more we find those people, the more we realize that the bad name that Christianity is getting due to politics should not be something that turns us against everybody that believes that way. Because honestly, like, a true Christian doesn't believe, like, in my opinion, a true Christian doesn't believe the way that this politicized nonsense of hating people and stuff promotes, because Christianity is not hate. It's not supposed to be hate, It's supposed to be love and spreading love. So, yeah, that's just my take on it. But that's a good question. I'm glad you asked that.
Okay. And thank you for answering that.
Of course.
Okay. Anyway, back to the story time. So it was last week when, well, I mean, I've talked it over with my pastor after the sermon, but anyway, before the next service, which was last Sunday, elaborated that I'm not told to hate on my gay friends. So I was feeling a lot better about that, while gay marriage is not okay biblically, my point in gay marriage still stands, and the response was that it's okay to agree to disagree, you know.
Yeah.
And so so I felt a lot better. Felt a lot better after that, and while I still get a little upset about it, that's something that I have to remember. From that.
I'm proud of you for like speaking up though and expressing your opinion, and it sounds like, you know, you sounds like you're very confident in it and firm in it to get the response of, well, we'll just have to agree to disagree, you know, versus him trying to convince you otherwise. I think that's really awesome. That's hard to do. That's hard to do. It's a big step. So major props to you for doing that, honestly. Because yeah, that ain't easy. That ain't easy. I have to say, I'm very non-confrontational, and I just dip out a lot whenever things pop up like that, because I hate confrontation. So when I experienced that, you know, in the church, I kind of just vanished. I was like, bye, I'm just gonna disappear. So major props to you for doing that, honestly. And yeah, agreeing to disagree is tough, but the important thing is still standing your ground on what you believe, and I like that, you know, you were able to do that. I think that's awesome.
And I think that's what everyone should do, like agree to disagree with respect, and not the other way around.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, one of the things about theology and religion as a whole is there's a lot that goes into all of it. Interpreting it, you know, realizing translations, thinking about everybody's hands that were involved in creating these books over time. Therefore, you know, just because something in current versions of the Bible is worded a certain way doesn't even mean that was an original intent, and that's something I had to really accept and deal with and realize, because I grew up thinking that you could not challenge anything the Bible said, you could not have a different opinion or interpretation. You know, you don't have to act like the Bible has no value. You can just have a different take on what it means, and people will still like freak out and act like you're just making up excuses or wrong. But like, there's a lot of evidence that shows our opinions hold value even biblically if you look at them from certain perspectives. I mean, I've done a lot of research trying to understand that kind of thing because it was important to me at one time in my life. So yeah, I really appreciate what you're saying, and I think it's important that we can have these theology discussions. And you know, as long as I think you and I are the same in, like, at the end of the day, regardless of our opinion, it's like our own experience is what should be affected by any of our opinions. Otherwise, we should be loving people. Like, that's the thing, and that's what differentiates the way we believe, I think, a lot from a lot of other versions of Christianity, because I think they are so scared of people going to hell that they think they're doing the right thing by being real with them and being honest with them, but really they're pushing them away and hurting them more than they're doing anything. And I'm grateful that we were able to get out of that mindset and see that and still maintain some sort of spirituality. You know, I think I might be biased, but I think we're on the right side of it. So I did just want to say that.
Okay, that's cool. Cool. I think that'll do for this video. Or unless you want to share any other related stories regarding to that, I'm sure we got enough time for that.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't have anything specific prepared. I just did want to say, you know, to anyone watching who is either affected by this, conflicted on it, or even watching because you're on the other side of the people that we're talking about. I just want to say, like, when you're raised in something like this, it's really hard to grow up and think in a gray area. You think very black and white, like this is wrong or this is right. This, and you think in labels almost. And I just want to say that, like, I'm someone who struggled with that. A lot of times when I speak out about, like, hey, I don't think gay people are going to hell, people just think I'm, like, excusing sin, and they'll say things like, you're just saying this to fit your narrative or whatever, but people don't realize how ingrained that I was in my religion and how seriously I took it. I took it more seriously than anybody around me as a kid. Like, I was very, very rule following obsessed. Like, I was obsessed with following the rules. So I just want to say, I know how hard it is to break free of the fear that is involved in, challenging any of the rules that you were taught. But once you get there, it's hard. But once you get there, it is so freeing to see that it's not a us or them thing. It's not Christians versus gay people. It's not, perfect people versus the sinners. It's literally like we are all humans with this beautiful power to love each other inside of us. And once you realize that, like, fear is not going to connect you with God, fear of anything, hell, any of it, fear will not allow you to feel free with God. Love will. Love is the way to get there. So the more you love, the less you have to worry about being dirty, being, all these things that, like, you're scared of being. Like, love purifies that. Love is the thing that helps you rise to your highest spiritual level, in my opinion. So anyway, just a note to everybody out there. I've been through it. It's hard, but regardless of what side you're on, I do believe there's hope for you to free yourself from those binds. So there you go. There's my mic drop finishing speech.
Okay. Okay. Well. Again, thank you for being on the channel again.
Absolutely.
Definitely go check out her channel. The link will be in the description below. And if you want to see more from me, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss anything from me.
Heck yeah.
But if you don't, you're gonna turn into a Goomba!
I hope we end every one of these with a different variation of that, because last time the Norks, this time we got Goombas. This is great. And nobody wants to be a Goomba. Those guys don't look like they're very happy. So definitely hit that subscribe button, guys.
Okay. Take care. We'll see you next. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Goodbye.